Missed an episode of your favorite podcast? Choose from over a decade of content in our archives, not just the latest episode. All free at gcnlive.com.
This is your call to action. Get prepared, America. Economy, survival, energy, disasters. This is USAPrepares.com. Informative radio, educational radio. Interact now by emailing instructor@USAPrepares.com or text at 434-390-7953. Class, please take your seats. Now, your instructor, Vincent Finelli.
You know, oh, jeez. Everyone all set? Cocked? Locked? Here we go. Your dial set correctly to USAPrepares.com. We're delighted you're here, and we broadcast 2 hours from high atop the Missouri Ozark Mountains. If you'd like to call us, I've got the stack ready to go. I'm looking at the call screen, and I'll put you on right away if you'd like to call us. 866-582-9933. 866-582-9933. The listen line is great. It's a great way to take us with you as you travel. And sometimes the listen line works when the archives are not working, and vice versa. So let me give you that number, 605-477-3249. So think of the listen line as an endless loop, and it plays the day's broadcast, and it recycles the next day and goes to the next day's broadcast. John is engineering our broadcast in Minnesota. I'm Vincent Finelli. Doc Ram is with us. Dr. Richard Allen Miller, docram.com, DOCRAM.com. Welcome, Rick.
Good morning. I need a little more volume, Vincent.
Okay, we'll crank that up. How
Maybe
is that?
half again.
Half again. F again. You know, my father and my grandfather used to say to me, half I'm going to tell you, the other half you're going to have to learn.
Yeah.
So here we are. So, Rick, I have been looking at docram.com. Wow, you have a link to the Central Intelligence Agency Vault Number 7, CIA hacking tools revealed. This is worth an hour of broadcast time thinking about the hacking that has gone on. And it says, on Tuesday, WikiLeaks began its new series of leaks on the U.S. Central Intelligence Agency, codenamed Vault 7 by WikiLeaks. It's the largest ever publication of confidential documents on the agency. The first full part of the series, it's called Year Zero, comprises 8,761 documents and files from an isolated, high-security network situated inside the CIA's Center for Cyber Intelligence in Langley, Virginia. It follows an introductory disclosure last month of CIA targeting French political parties and candidates in the lead-up to the 2012 presidential election. It says that recently the CIA lost control of the majority of its hacking arsenal, including malware, viruses, Trojans, weaponized zero-day exploits, malware remote control systems, and associated documentation. So it looks like they lost control of their arsenal. And their arsenal sounds pretty darn dangerous. What do you think, Rick?
I'm disappointed. You know, so the CIA is supposed to be outside the United States, and I'm about to post another one regarding posing as Russians for this so-called fixing the elections with Trump BS. You know, I don't get it and why they're trying to do that. It's almost as if they're trying to cause a revolution in America so they can have an excuse to injunction with sanction, you know, Agenda 21. You know, that Chicago thing that they were trying to do to get Trump to declare martial law would have done it. It's it's a bunch of BS, and I don't really know why they're doing it.
Rick, the article that you've posted a link to is nexusnewsfeed.com. Nexusnewsfeed.com.
Yeah, magazine, yeah.
Yeah, and it says here that Year Zero introduces the scope and direction of the CIA's global covert hacking program, its malware arsenal, and dozens of zero-day weaponized exploits against a wide range of U.S. and European company products, including Apple's iPhone, Google's Android, Microsoft's Windows, even Samsung TVs, which are turned into covert microphones. And we've been talking about how your cell phones, your smartphones can be turned on remotely without you knowing about it. The microphone, the camera, you can be tracked. And here it is. It's not, we're not the only ones saying this, Rick. Now, months later, there is a huge article that you've linked on docram.com to Nexus Newsfeed. This is unbelievable. It's adding the next level of legitimacy to what we've been talking about. Would you agree?
I'm concerned. You know, I have friends that work for the CIA, and it's not. The whole thing's out of control. It's just typical of bureaucracies that have no, what do they call that?
Oversight.
Mm-hmm. You know, they can do whatever they want, and there's no one to call them on it. I'm wondering what's happening to my website with anomalies that I'm noticing. It happened at exactly the same time on Thanksgiving. You remember when I was hacked on Thanksgiving and Ed Marvini was coming to visit you?
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, well, there's anomalies that are happening on my website that are related to what happened on Amazon. The two happened at exactly the same time, which means I was physically taken out, literally, financially.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it wasn't just Amazon, it was my website as well. Right now, we get pending where I have to check every order that comes in to make sure that I've received payment from PayPal. The handshake that they've somehow, and I'm not saying it's CIA, something has disrupted the handshakes between PayPal and my account, and I'm guessing, and we change passwords and things like that, but once they're in, they can do things. I had Mike Mandeville was visiting me last year, and he was sleeping when his computer was turned on. That camera started filming him, and he noted that. This is a real problem.
You know, Rick, there's another problem.
I can't hear you too, by the way.
Okay. There's another problem that we have, and that is that we are absolutely positively dependent on the internet for commerce. It wasn't too long ago, a couple of weeks ago, at the most, that one of Amazon's servers or a collection of servers went down, and people were screaming because they couldn't do their e-commerce. Their business were those business models that rely exclusively or mostly on the internet transactions were unable to be completed. So here we have businesses that are unable to get the revenue to pay their bills, and they were screaming. So there are a lot of components to this, and I remember back in the 1990s, I was asked to build a computer system for a hospital, and it was the purchasing department of the hospital, and this was in order to place orders electronically for bandages and syringes and intravenous lines, all kinds of things, except for some medicines. And, the supplies that are used in conjunction with those medicines. And that was the early days of connecting purchasing to the internet or remote ordering. And it was quite significant, and it was heralded as a boon to the hospital industry. because it would streamline ordering. We'll just hook up our computer to do that. The bottom line was, it was one computer, one PC that we built, and then we built another one, and then we built a network to network them together. But at first, if that one PC went down, which was entirely possible, not that we built shoddy equipment, but it's entirely possible that it could go down by surge or physical damage. But the system was dependent on that one PC. And I was very concerned about that, so I built a redundant network and used uninterruptible power and so forth. But the bottom line is, that was just one tiny, tiny, tiny example at one hospital and how dependent they were on bandages. Now, if a person was going in for surgery and they didn't have bandages, that would be a problem. Surgery could not continue because of lack of bandages, sterile bandages. Just a thought, Rick.
I don't know what to say about that. I just posted another one on WikiLeaks this morning called CIA Hackers Can Pose as Russians. Ring a bell?
Yeah, it absolutely can. And it's disgraceful. It's disgraceful. But we posed, our team, I guess it would be our team, in the 1700s, dressed up as Indians. Didn't we do that? Didn't we do false flag events in the beginnings of this country, like the Boston Tea Party? Isn't that what that was all about?
I don't know. That's pretty weird.
Let's blame the Indians. I mean, yeah, that's what we did. So, Rick, to add another dot to this connection, there's a CBS series called Blue Bloods. It stars Tom Selleck and others, and it's about a police family, and we'll call them law enforcement in New York City. Grandfather was the former police commissioner. Tom Selleck is the current police commissioner. His son Danny is a detective first class. His other son is a uniformed cop. His daughter is an assistant district attorney. And so the family's in the law enforcement business. And Danny, their son, is known for slamming people's heads against hoods of cars, roughing them up. And it's acceptable, at least on this series. We'll be right back. So this good Irish Catholic family, as shown on the Blue Bloods, demonstrates on the screen that it's acceptable to rough up the village people. Those would be those in New York City. They push the limits of authority. They fabricate stories. They lie to suspects. They handcuff victims. They actually handcuff them in the back, people who were just shot by a pistol. I'm talking about handcuffing victims who were just shot, throwing them over onto their stomach, grabbing their arms, and they've just been shot in the front. And this appears to be okay. And then even beyond that, there are episodes where the system, the law enforcement system, is used for private enterprise. And here's what I mean by that. They depict on the screen how a member of law enforcement, New York City's finest team, would use crime in a neighborhood to lower the value of buildings. And they know there will be a raid coming on soon, and then a law enforcement person would buy the building at the lowest price because they know that the neighborhood's going to be cleaned up. And then they would re-rent those units at higher rates. So that's the kind of stuff that is being portrayed. Now, is it fiction? Yeah, it is. But does it happen in reality? I've got to say it's got to. So we know that from some of our instructors across the globe, we know that the blue team is involved in private enterprise. Like, when women are stopped in vehicles, and if they're attractive, they can provide service to get out of those tickets. And we know that. And we know that there are dirty cops, and we know that police steal drugs and then are involved in selling them and using them to be planted on the next victim of the highwaymen. So the reason I'm mentioning, I think it's all germane to the the story about the CIA and how they have overstepped their authority or alleged authority and are doing things that are just, they seem heinous to me. Aren't you outraged at a brand new smart television being able to turn on its microphone and listen to a person?
All my computers have duct tape over the camera and plugs where the mic goes into the computer.
Yeah, and not only, well, I'll tell you what else they can do. They have software that can reverse the camera, the headphone and the microphone. So your microphone and your headphone use pretty much the same technology. As a matter of fact, you could use a headphone as a microphone. So if you plug in your headphone to your microphone jack on a PC, you could talk into the headphone and it would be intelligible. So what could happen is you could say, oh, I'm going to block the microphone. No problem there. Well, and I'll just leave my headphones on. How about that? So that can be done. So a lot of things can be done with this technology. And the only way to stop it I can think of is to unplug it. That means unplug the router, make sure it's not connected to DSL or whatever your router or your cable or whatever your router is connected to. Those are the only ways, because a lot of people use wireless communications. And there's so many devices that can be connected wirelessly. As a matter of fact, years ago, you could use a tube from the center of a roll of paper towels, line it with aluminum foil, and make a very simple antenna booster where a person could sit in his car or her car in a parking lot or on the street, aim it toward a house, and be able to pick up a very weak Wi-Fi signal and pick it up and increase the signal strength with a homemade aluminum foil and cardboard tube from a roll of paper towels to be able to hop on if they could get through the password. We are vulnerable. So the answer is to get rid of the wireless communications to the greatest extent possible.
That's our big deal, is communication. That's what it is all about, being able to communicate. Letters, writing, texting, speaking, it's all about communication. The phone companies have had monopolies on that and been oh, Jesus. I'm not even going to get into what they're doing. I mean, it's awful. I have CenturyLink out here, and I've got...
Hold that thought. We'll be right back.
Sure.
Class, in the remaining hour and a half or hour and 25 minutes of the broadcast, we're going to be talking about some more of the CIA's tools to invade businesses and homes and countries. And we're also going to be talking about radiation at over 2,200 times normal. That'll be hour number 2 today. And I'm going to tell you what we've experienced as a result of anomalies here on the farm. Quite shocking. That's coming up. So, Rick, at the end of the last segment, you're talking about CenturyLink, and we're talking about monopolies, because your neck of the woods and our neck of the woods, CenturyLink has got a presence, and I don't have a choice. If I want to have a landline, or if I want to have internet connected by a wire, I only have one choice, and that's CenturyLink. And you have the same thing, right?
The CenturyLink runs their business out here like a party line, and the bandwidth is supposed to be up around 5 megabaud, but it's down at around 570 click, and that's why I can't use Skype sometimes, because of atmospheric. It's terrible, and they have a monopoly in that they don't have to deliver what they say they will, because you have no other choice. To get Charter in here would cost me a couple of grand just to have the pipe laid down. And I have to say, I had Charter, and I had no problem with Charter. CenturyLink is terrible. And I've got Charter on either side of me. With the reason I have CenturyLink, they said I brought my power in the wrong direction, and that, I didn't do it, but the way the power was brought into the property was coming from a different direction, which means they can't lay the pipe, and that's crazy.
You're talking about CenturyLink or Charter?
Yeah, it's CenturyLink. Charter. Yeah. That's why I don't have Charter in here now, is because CenturyLink dropped the wire in, and then, I mean, they're expensive. They're not. They'd give you 1/4 the bandwidth that you get with Charter for the same price, and while their teams are semi-professional, their customer service and tech support needs some help. I'm not happy with them.
Okay. I can tell you, Rick, that 11 years ago, I started with CenturyTel, which became CenturyLink. CenturyTel was an absolutely fabulous company, and I praised them. I said, you guys must have a wonderful test where you filter out 99% of the people who apply, because you guys are the best of the best. But that was then, and they have fixed that. They have become what I would consider an equal opportunity employer. They'll hire anybody, or it seems like they'll hire anybody. They give me wrong information, just like Verizon. I mean, no different from Verizon. You can talk to a Verizon support guy or gal or customer service, and you get the wrong answers from them. Maybe the businesses are so complicated and they don't train their employees, or they don't have the screens where they can read you the correct answers. Maybe it's all of the above. But I can tell you that with CenturyLink, I call them every 6 months and tell them that, I've been with you guys for a while, and I'd like to stay with you guys, but I just can't justify the increases in cost, because it went from about $10 a month for a landline to about $100+ a month to have a landline plus DSL, and that's a problem. So it's up 5 times. So I ask for a discount, and I keep getting it. But I have to remember to keep asking for the loyalty reward. So yes, you can do that, class, and just call up your phone company or your cell company or your entertainment company, and just tell them that you'd like to continue with them, but geez, it's just hard to justify it. Can they help you? And the department that you want to ask for is the customer retention department. So Rick, according to this article on NexusNewsFeed.com, by the end of 2016, the CIA's hacking division, which formerly falls under the agency's Center for Cyber Intelligence, had over 5,000 registered users. And I'm not sure what a user is. And it said maybe that would be agents or employees. And it produced more than 1,000 hacking systems, Trojans, viruses, and other weaponized malware. That's weaponized with quotes. Such is the scale of the CIA's undertaking that by 2016, its hackers had utilized more code than used to run Facebook. The CIA had created, in effect, its own NSA with even less accountability and without publicly answering the questions as to whether such a massive budgetary spend on duplicating the capacities of a rival agency could be justified. So it sounds like we have competing agencies, the CIA and the NSA, and they are building systems to snoop. Years ago, Rick, the CIA would have these little micro cameras, that would fit in the palm of your hand, where a regular single lens reflex 35 millimeter camera would have to be held by 2 hands. So they have these little tiny palm-sized cameras, and that was, what they would take pictures with. But we went from cameras and wiretapping to snooping on pretty much everything we do.
The cameras now are those flies on the wall. They're that small, and they're airborne.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Little drones.
Yeah, and they've got spot them. Yeah, and they have big drones too. They've got big drones that can drop serious explosives and fire from these fire projectiles from these drones. So this is something that is quite alarming. And I proposed to the state of Missouri that they consider this bill and make it law. And that was very simply, it was one sentence, and that it said that the people have the right to have any weapons that the government has, any weapons. And they laughed at me. And one guy said, so, you're talking about like a bazooka? I said, well, I don't know. I don't know if I'd like a bazooka or not, but, I want the right to have a bazooka. And a tank? Yeah, I'd like to have the right to have a tank. Sure. If you guys have them, sure. I'd like to have the right to have one too. And we'll just level the playing field just a little bit. Not that I want to go out and use my tank and blow stuff up. No, that's not the point. The point is, what makes them think that they can have things that they say, well, you guys can't have them because you're just too dangerous? I think they're dangerous.
Yeah, I think this whole war on terrorism at home and the justification of Agenda 21 and the uses of the military at home, not National Guard, is a disgrace. This is no longer the country that you and I served and protected. It's wrong what they're doing. And nobody can do anything about it because now they're using computers to gerrymander the elections. Just profiling an individual enough with a D-Wave technology can accurately change the voting district one block at a time to control who wins. That's how accurate profiling is and how sinister things are becoming. The state of Oregon went with Hillary Clinton, even though a group of us, that most of the state voted for Trump. How come the state of Oregon went for Clinton? I don't know. It's really interesting to see how Portland controls the entire rest of the state of Oregon. Mm-hmm. That's one of the reasons why we want to have the state of Jefferson, the free state of Jefferson, because our needs and interests are quite different than Portland and the Willamette Valley.
Rick, I saw firsthand in the same kitchen table where you've sat right here at the farmhouse, a man who voted for Barack Obama, and this was after Barack was in office about 5 years, extolling the virtues of Barack Obama and that administration, how well the economy was running, how everything was just great, and right then and there, I didn't throw him out of the house, but I prevented him from ever coming back, and I said publicly that I saw this, and I don't want anyone who is involved with the other team that's trying to steal from us what we've worked generations for in our home. And I can do that. I can prevent people from coming into our home because it's our home. And I don't want people who are supporting the other team in my home. I won't allow it. And what we're looking at with the CIA malware, it's targeting iPhones, Androids, smart televisions. Why do we need a smart television? Why would anybody buy a television that has a microphone in it? Televisions are supposed to be one-way communications from the service provider, from the broadcaster, so that we can receive. It's supposed to be a receiver, not a transceiver, not a transmitter and a receiver. But with the internet, it has become that. It has become that. And so why would a TV have a microphone? Well, so when you are watching commercials, allegedly, so they can say, well, we can tell whether those commercials are being booed or cheered, or whether the team is being booed or cheered, and they will know your reactions to what is being displayed on the television by your responses as they listen to and record and provide those to third parties. People you don't even know who they are. Class, Doc Ram is with us, Dr. Richard Allen Miller, and you can go to docram.com. He's got some specials on some of his books. We'll tell you a little bit about that later, but if you'd like to get them directly, that's the place to get them. If you'd like to make sure that you're supporting Doc Ram, you need to buy them directly from him, and you can go to docram.com. Rick, I drive a 17-year-old Mercedes-Benz. I bought it for very little money. I paid less than the tax that was originally paid on that vehicle when it was new. But 17 years old, has over 150,000 miles on it. And years ago, I was traveling, and my passenger spilled coffee down the transmission control computer, and the car just got thinking it was in being stolen, so it locked itself up. And I called Mercedes, 1-800-4Mercedes, and they asked me where I was, and I said, I'm really not sure, but, I'm in Illinois, and they said, okay, they asked me for the VIN. I gave them the VIN, the vehicle identification number. They said, okay, you're at the intersection of Corvette and some other lane. And I said, yeah, I can see that. I can see that now, looking at the street sign. They knew where I was. Now, Mercedes has a SOS kind of a system built into their vehicles, and you pay for it, maybe $20 a month. Of course, I didn't pay for that, never signed up for it, didn't turn it on, didn't activate it, but it was following me around. Now, that's 17 years ago. Now, let's fast forward to what the Department of Transportation wanted. United States Department of Transportation was proposing, this is in 2016, vehicle-to-vehicle systems, or V2V, that allows cars to communicate with each other in effort to warn drivers about potential accidents and prevent crashes. That's what they're saying. The range is 1,000 feet. And so your vehicle knows how fast it's going. It knows how the force at which you're braking. It's got like a little black box in it, like airplanes do, and so it stores that data. Now I can just see coming soon when the officer comes up to the side of the vehicle after pulling you over and says, "So how fast were you going?" And you say, "Well, 55. I was in a 55 zone. I was doing 55." He goes, "Oh no, you weren't. No, I'm looking right here on my scanner, and it says you were doing a different speed." Now, I can see this coming, and I can see recording of the voices, because there are those systems. General Motors has one where you can talk to it. You can talk. It's got a microphone, and you can communicate. And you can say, "I just had a car crash, and can you unlock my door? I can't get out." Well, if they can hear your voice in your car through the microphone that's built into your car, they can hear and have that all recorded. I can just see that. Like, what were the last words that happened just before the airplane crash? They have that recorded. So, Rick, I'm concerned about this article that you have that is entitled at Nexus Newsfeed called Vault 7, CIA Hacking Tools.
Yeah, they've got them. They've got them all, just like all the other agencies. It is a new world with artificial intelligence and supercomputers.
Mm-hmm. And it goes on to say, Rick, that in the paragraphs called "Evading Forensics and Antivirus," it says a series of standards lay out the CIA malware infestation patterns, which are likely to assist forensic crime scene investigators, as well as Apple, Microsoft, Google, Samsung, Nokia, BlackBerry, Siemens, and antivirus companies attribute and defend against attacks. So it looks like, from what I can tell, it looks like these tools are out there, they've been exposed, and they are increasing at an increasing rate.
Well, yeah, it's a weapon. They can use it. And the problem is, it's like the DOS attacks and some of the other things that are coming out of the Ukraine. Where is this all going to go?
Yeah, and is it really out of the Ukraine, or we don't even know, right? We really don't know where all these attacks are coming from.
That's true.
Because a server can be compromised, and then the attack can look like it's coming from someplace it's not. And that's what our government is really expert at doing. False flag, dressing up as Indians, and throwing a tea overboard. It's an outrage. They can lie to us, but we can't lie to them. As a matter of fact, it's even illegal to resist an illegal arrest in the state of Missouri. Imagine that, being arrested for something that you didn't do, and you can't even resist it. Everyone all set? Cocked? Locked? Hour number 2 of USAPrepares.com. Doc Ram's with us. Dr. Richard Allen Miller is with us. Rick, you've got a post that is, quite alarming. It's beyond alarming. It's on your Facebook page, docram.com, and it says gamma radiation report. Absolutely terrifying. February 11th, 2017. And it says that it's your radiation this week, and it's city by city. Would you tell us what you have found out from this?
Well, that's a report that I got with Nexus Magazine. Again, this is the new Nexus feed that Duncan has started. I'm really impressed with it. He is working with Gaia, but I guess he's not very happy with them, but his feed is excellent. And they have a little smattering of everything. The radiation right now in the world is quite alarming because it's not just Fukushima. There's other things going on. New York City and Indian Point and Florida, with that reactor down there, they're all leaking. And they're creating toxin in the air. And, just flying from Asia back to LAX is now considered to be marginally dangerous. I mean, I'm not talking about wearing a dosimetry badge where you measure the radiation you're exposed to in a high-energy physics thing. I'm talking about real serious, like being in a microwave. The radiation is so bad that the planes are no longer cleaned in public. They're taken off to behind hangars where they can wash them down, and then hazmat has to come in and remove the toxic waste that attracted to the metal on the aircraft. And it is like being inside a microwave oven. That means anybody flying from Hong Kong, China, whatever, to LAX is going to get exposed to the equivalent of probably 20 X-rays. Not 9, 20. Mm-hmm. It's that serious. And if you're doing it frequently, like a pilot, I'm going to guess there's going to be a half-life of those people, and we're going to see more and more people dying. The children in Fukushima right now, 48% of them, children, have thyroid anomalies and cancer. And right now, 48%. And there's a law that it prohibits the ability to talk about it. Can you believe that? You're not allowed to talk about it. It's against the law. That's why news reports coming out of there are limited and sparse. It's beyond what we really could possibly imagine, and now it's leaking into the ocean, and they can't stop it. That's your China syndrome going full Monty. The radiation from nuclear power plants was supposed to be a problem that we solved before we turned the reactors on. And because of the profit margins, General Electric, others that make that Daiichi-like plant, they are not clean. Basically, they did not have the technology, but presumed that they would by the time that they needed it. They don't. And as a result, it's almost impossible to clean it up or stop it. And if Japan is subject to a major earthquake shortly, that country, landmass, will probably no longer exist. It'll fall down into that deep trench, And then we're going to have a real serious problem with the fish and what's happening to our sea. The blob, the so-called blob out in the center of the Pacific Ocean, is not radiation. That's where it's because the Earth is venting volcanoes underwater, and it's heating the water. That's what's happening. But it's already on the western shores here. I mean, in Oregon and everything. And when you talk about New York City and currents from Indian Point, I don't understand why there isn't more outrage in the public, demanding that these reactors be turned off. Texas is talking about putting new ones in. I can't believe it. It's your Madrid fault line, where you live, has got 20 Daiichi-like reactors that are all leaking, and if that fault line goes, that whole region is going to be uninhabitable. It isn't a question of prepping and like that. It's like, that's how serious it is. And nobody is talking about it. That's the part I don't get. I have a problem with science altogether. I'm going to say something further. I feel that science is no longer honorable, and the way it used to be. Peer review is about money and faking results. And that's when Carnegie Mellon came out with a peer review where 19 out of 20 scientists said that the chemtrails were contrails. The credibility of science fell from grace. And today, because of the way people are running laboratories, and there's no integrity in the field of science anymore. And so I'm going to suggest that the new physics is going to be a form of magic, which is advanced physics with a mystery school. I'm already writing about it, where I have to write about metaphysics, things that were normally left to religion, and we're finding a lot of the sciences now are talking about what happens in the multiverse, dream states. Did you know that dream states is like dying? That's what I came to in my conclusion in the books my non-local mind book I'm writing right now. I just finished Chapter 7, and I've just started Chapter 8. And Chapter 8 will talk about the different kinds of dreams that there are and how you can use them to change the movie, the cavitation process. Lucid dreaming and other techniques like that, where you work with altered states of consciousness as toolbox rather than things to be avoided. You can do things in these different states that you cannot do in a normal conscious waking state, one of which is hypnosis to induce extrasensory perception in an altered state. And did you know that we still don't really know how that works, which means that we're using our intuition as a tool with a mystery school to it. That means it's magic. Magic is the art of changing consciousness at will, and that will be the next stage in the evolution of man, using your altered states of consciousness like tools. So,
Rick, speaking of tools, you've got a special on power tools for the 21st century. You've got workbook
that's my
number
attempt
1.
to beat up Amazon and stop this nonsense. There's terrible things going on. Amazon, we busted them like a drug dealer, and what I'm doing is telling them I want their source, and if I'll give them a pass if they tell me who did it. And right now, Amazon might, Ingram will not. Lightning Source is balking. They actually canceled my account with them on print on demand when I started asking questions about who else is printing my books. How does that work?
Well, I'll tell you how it sort of works. I have a barn that was damaged by a windstorm. We had a massive windstorm. So I called the insurance company, and I said, hey, the roof was ripped off our barn. You know what they did? They canceled my insurance on the barn because the barn's not repaired. Because they offered me $750 to repair the roof. I can't even get anybody to look at it for $750. So yeah, these companies are willing to steal from us. That's
well, their customer service is different now, And it's a whole different kind of an animal. And really, Create Space is Amazon's equivalent to lightning source for Ingram. And I think that those are where the damages go, because anybody, you, me, can go in, and their plea is, well, we're just the printer. You know, they'll take your money and do something that is
That's
not
like the
right.
government. It's like the government. You get to these people who are not authorized to do anything, but they're in your way. And you can't really, it's hard to figure out what the chain of command is and where to go, because it's so massive and they hide it from you. So I understand the frustration. So class, if you're interested in power tools for the 21st century, Dr. Richard Allen Miller has workbook number 1, workbook number 2. And workbook number 2 is Can You Live Off the Grid for 30 Days? And then the book Power Tools, all three, $30. That's at richardallenmiller.com. Richard, R-I-C-H-A-R-D.
See, yeah,
Allen.
they can't do that. They can't group things like books of the mind, where I do ESP and the Modern Alchemist. I'm grouping my books as a technique to avoid people bootlegging my books. However, what I'm about to do is come out with 120 audiobooks. I've already got them done. Now we're working on packaging, and that series is on metaphysics and the 11 years I taught metaphysics at universities like Harvard with IES. Basically, in 1992, PC Link wanted to become AOL, and they hired me to set up their metaphysics and the occult sections of AOL and their download libraries. I was paid. And I began teaching courses on those, and in the third year, they became accredited across the country. We used the Well out of San Francisco as a bulletin board, worked out of Humboldt, and the first online teaching. And what each class is about 1 hour long, and there's 8 weeks for each class. I have 15 courses that I taught.
Hold that thought. Class, Doc Ram's with us, and very quickly, he's got a 3-book special. Workbook number 1, which is with the Power Tools, and the Power Tools book, and workbook number 2, which is Can You Live Off the Grid for 30 Days? Special, buy 3, all of them, $30. Then he's got another special, ESP Induction. It's a self-hypnosis book, and The Modern Alchemist. It's a guide to personal transformation. Both of them, $30, normally $45. Then he's got another set of books. Now, these are Herbs, Native Plants, and Alternative Agriculture. 3 books, all 3 of them, $50, normally $65. And then he's got the Magical series, the on aphrodisiacs, the perfumes and herbs. All 3 of them for $30, normally $45. So he's cut the price. And Rick, can you autograph them if someone buys them directly from you?
Yeah, I'm a small publisher. I don't have distribution. I'm not selling to bookstores. I sell to individuals. I don't care to be a big deal. This is a small mom and pop thing, and every book that comes out of here is autographed.
Okay, wonderful. Now, you were telling us... Yeah. So, class, you can go to richardallenmiller.com, Richard, A-L-A-N, Miller, M-I-L-L-E-R.com. And,
so I was invited to, in April, to a very large comic conference called Cherry Hill Comic Con in Salem. They have about 5,000 kids that show up. And they've asked me to be the keynote speaker as the real Dr. Strange. And what I'm going to do, I'm going to do it like Galaxy Quest, where I crash a spaceship into the convention and chased onto stage with aliens. Just kidding. But what I am going to do is try to give these kids a new direction in comic books, as it served me very well. And look what's happening to our education and movies today. This is where kids learn a lot more in the sciences. Dr. Strange, for example, is number 6 in all-time movies that are scientifically correct. Number 1 is the 2001 Space Odyssey, And in the continuum is number 7. Strange, actually, believe this or not, is technically correct. And that is because it is where physics is going now, into metaphysics, the idea of something beyond the physical plane as your model. That's what I'm going to be doing. I'll be coming out with my audiobooks on the courses I taught in metaphysics, and there'll be topics and there'll be posts. When books that I deem important in your reading list, they're free downloads. That's what I used to do for AOL, set up their download libraries. That's what drew people there originally when everything was shareware and that kind of thing.
Well, I'm really looking forward to hearing these audiobooks. I really
You have no idea. The thing on, just on a topic like ghosts, I had maybe during the 11 years I taught, maybe 100 different questions on poltergeist and what's the difference between that and a ghost. And these are me explaining in groups of questions. There's maybe about 30 topics that have strings. And I did that on herbs as well. That will be my PDF series that will support the alternative agriculture that I did. The encyclopedia, the 9-volume encyclopedia, is now up as an ebook. And I've even published some older magic mushroom handbooks that I wrote for High Times in the early years.
Rick, I've got a quick question for you. For those who are starting gardens right now, do you have a typical pH, an average pH that you'd like to see the soil at for growing most things? I know that...
Well, you lime your soils. If you lime your soils, it will balance out. And when I say lime it, you put more lime down than you need, and then the lime goes into the soil to hold that pH at 7. And it's a natural way of doing it. Lime mostly comes from your part of the world, and there are soil amendments and other kinds of things you can use. I also like to use brown algae, bullwhip or narcissus. It's an annual that comes in off the tides during the summer. It blocks fishing lanes and is actually trace minerals rich for a soil.
We'll talk a little bit about that when we come back. And also, what about wood ashes for our garden? We'll be right back. Doc Ram's with us. Dr. Richard Allen Miller. You can go to his website, richardallenmiller.com, and buy his books there, or you can go to docram.com and study his Facebook page. Rick, wood ashes. How do you feel about, we've got a wood stove, and I'm sure others have.
The problem with wood ash, and it's good because it'll get nematode and thrip. It'll take out cutworm and other things like that big time, is that it often is burnt from newspaper and other kinds of things that have other materials in it that are not good for the soil, ink and that kind of thing.
Not the case with us. We just burn wood.
What's that?
That's not the case with us. It's just
wood. Okay, well then your product's good to go, and that will take out your thrip and nematode and some of those weird soil organisms that are not deemed, healthy for certain kinds of flowers and other kinds of things. Your mom probably would really like what it does for her flowers.
Sure.
Yeah,
and
that's
access to that
there's
pile.
Other kinds of things that you want to put in. There's all kinds of soil amendments. Every soil is different. Liming is critical. Wood ash is next to take out, thrip and nematode and cutworm. There's other things that you can do. My encyclopedia runs it down in numerous different articles on different kinds of things. I like out here where we have seaweed, we use a brown algae. That's the big bullwhip kelp, that has a big ball on the end of it. It's an annual, that comes in on the tide. We used to come in and chop that and then dry it in plywood kilns that were no longer being used, and then powder it. And that's a really excellent soil amendment.
What about now, Rick, with the radioactivity in the ocean, the Pacific?
Yeah, marijuana, hemp. Hemp will actually bioremediate isotopes out of the soil. They actually do. They do. There's also, you can use exclusion zone water in certain kinds of fullerenes, and that will wrap up the isotopes so that they're no longer accessible to the body or the soil. If you wanted to do that, there's ways you can do that with exclusion zone water. That's a study that came out of Ukraine and now Russia, and was offered to Japan, and believe it or not, they turned it down.
Can we make our own exclusion zone water?
Can you make your own what?
Exclusion zone water.
Easy. All you have to, it differ. The process is the same, except in the opposite direction in which hemisphere you're in. Because we live in the northern hemisphere, Coriolis forces cause the water, when you flush it, to go down the drain and counterclockwise. Mm-hmm. If you have a funnel from your well water or whatever water you've got, when you pour it into the glass, if you were to use a funnel and pour it into the funnel in such a manner that it goes into the glass as clockwise, that alone will restructure probably 70% of the water.
Let me see if I've got.
Go ahead.
Let me see if I've got this right. So you use a funnel as a container, and then you turn the glass.
You pour it into the funnel so that it causes the water to go into a clockwise circular motion into the glass you're going to drink.
And it'll do that automatically, or do you use to tilt the glass?
Well, you have to aim the water so that you pour it in the funnel, so that when it hits the funnel, it causes it to go in the right direction rather than the counterclockwise direction.
Got it.
And so it's just the opposite on the other side of the equator.
Great. I've got it. So you use the funnel.
Light will restructure it, dropping small quantities of baking soda. You know, that's what homeopathy was, is that when you drop a single piece of element into a glass, it restructures the entire water, because what happens next is that when water touches something other than itself, it starts to form layers of memory, like a computer chip does. Only this is like 1,000,000 times more, in terms of 1,000,000 times more efficient. It can hold 1,000,000 times more information in the same amount of space. The water is, it has a whole bunch of different parts to it. It's levorotary because of the dipole moment. That's what makes it so interesting in the first place, as the first molecule that has a dipole moment. Hydrogen and helium and hydrogen are H2 and He2. They're binary code. I mean, they're binary, so that they don't form a dipole moment. But two molecules of hydrogen with oxygen, that does form a dipole moment. So you have levorotary, or what we call para and ortho water. And para is usually 4 times the ortho, and in terms of the way the dipole moment goes. And then you have isotopes, deuterium and tritium, and then you start talking about clusters of water when they bond 3 molecules and with a free radical ion. That's called Carey-Reams or Willard water. That's what you find around a waterfall, where you have H709 with a free radical ion. And it has all these different layers, so that when water touches something like plastic, it hardly has any kind of surface tension. However, if you touch tellurium, the surface tension and structuring of the water is so profound, the water will run right up the side of the wall and over the edge. That's how Jerry Pollack first discovered the exclusion zone water that is now what makes muscle work. And it's interesting at UW. He's in anesthesiology. It's interesting that water may have us create a series of periodic charts for the way colloidal silver, monoatomic silver and the silver atom touch other items, they're all different. And so we may have periodic charts for different forms of our metals and our salts and gases. I don't know that at this point, but it would appear that monoatomic gold, for example, actually is quite different than colloidal gold, and just, gold is a hunk of metal. They all behave differently, and that came out of studies with what's his name that was over in England, Sir, I can't think of his name now, he's dead, but he did the Grail series where he did studies on how the pharaohs used monoatomic gold for immortality. It does things like silver, colloidal silver is like an antibiotic substitute.
Let me see if I've got this right, Rick. So what we do is we take water, we pour it slowly into a funnel and force it to go in a clockwise direction.
Correct. That's simple. And that's, rather than spending $400 on a gizmo, you can just do it with a funnel.
Okay. And the other thing was add a small pinch of baking soda.
Yeah, that will restructure it as well. But what you're trying to do is get exclusion zone water, and that's different than restructuring the water. Restructuring the water is a way of changing or balancing pHs and things of that nature. In your soil, when you grow your foods, if you use exclusion zone water as opposed to water out of the tap or the well, and you actually put it through a little process before you use it, it will change everything so much you'll notice it. I mean, you'll be able to see a change, kind of like sonic bloom, where you hit it with this and you hit it with that, and there's no question something else is going on. That's because the plant is more active. The photosynthesis in plant is more active because of the exclusion zone water. Exclusion zone water is H3O2. It's hydrogen peroxide with an extra hydrogen molecule. And it's in the water. It's all there, and the water will regroup itself. And when you have exclusion zone water, things work differently. They're better. I'm actually going to suggest that your soul is memory water inside a microtubule. At the moment of death, there is a 3.2 ounce weight loss that we've observed. Like the Egyptians called it the Ba and the Ka. Your soul leaves the body and goes back to the multiverse. And that's Sir Roger Penrose. And that's what I've been doing now, is writing in that area, which is taking physics to another level as metaphysics, what I would call magic.
Rick,
where you don't have to know how it all works, still be able to use it. Women do that, by the way. They drive an automobile. And that's why there's a whole science in anthropology called cybernetic anthropology, and the way Aborigines, Hopi, Trebinder, and others relate to dreamtime and consciousness and the idea that none of this is real here in the physical plane.
Rick, do you believe in the power of prayer?
Absolutely. That's what you're doing, is restructuring water just by thought alone. I would say that healing yourself and getting well if you're sick, I would say 70% of that is just by your thought alone of what you think is happening. You remember I had that trigeminal nerve neuralgia problem? That's called the suicide illness. And I was losing sleep, where I was up every hour because of pain for almost 4 years. What basically happened, it was a structural thing where apparently my neck had been broken when I was age 5. There was the scar tissue, and it put my body off alignment by 5 degrees. And just being mindful of restructuring myself in the way I sit instead of slouch, I no longer have a problem. with
Awesome.
that trigeminal nerve. Now,
We're going into a break. We'll be right back. Rick, I'd like to get into the nezranews.blogspot.com that you've linked to about the radiation city by city. But first, Rick, if I take my garden hose and I form a spiral in a clockwise direction as the water exits it.
that's another thing. That's the way you should coil your hose. Mm-hmm. And when it comes out of the hose, to increase it like a waterfall. When it's coming out of the hose, you want it to spiral. There's ways of doing that with sound.
Okay. Let's talk about that next week. But I'd like to get to the radiation city by city. Rick, your post, your link to your post says that there's over 11,000 counts per minute in Navajo Lake, New Mexico.
Yeah.
10,600 counts per minute, Colorado Springs, Colorado. This is as of March 6th. I'm sorry. The post is March 6th, but the update is February 11th, 2017, and the author of the post is Bob Nichols. And he says that these are the counts. 10,500, I'm rounding, Raleigh, North Carolina. 9,800, Grand Junction, Colorado. 9,600, Spokane, Washington. 9,400, Amarillo, Texas. It's all over, Rick.
It's awful. And it's getting worse. There's the Nuclear Emergency Tracking Center, NETC.com, that's worthwhile looking at also. That gives you a minute by minute on what's happening each minute in radiation counts at any given moment, anywhere.
And
take a look at Japan.
and the lowest is Washington, D.C. Now, my question is, do you think they have a transmitter of some kind or an ion generator of some kind that forces the radiation elsewhere? Away from the city?
No, probably not. But I noticed that black slime mold is attacking everything concrete in Washington, D.C. It's going to consume it. That's the life form that thrives at Chernobyl and Fukushima. It's probably from galactic center, and it's in the process of terraforming Earth.
One of our classmates called me, and we talked about this. She said she was in touch with a doctor, a medical doctor, and he was telling her that we have either hit the tipping point or passed the tipping point where technology is taking us down in record numbers. People are sick in record numbers. They have run out of medicine in the Fredericksburg, Virginia area for treating the flu, symptoms of the flu. They've run out and they've gone to alternates. It hasn't happened in our neck of the woods, but I'm hearing stories like this. People are really, really sick all over. I'm talking seriously sick. Are you hearing that as well, Rick?
Well, it's, yeah. I haven't heard that rumor, but it's to be expected with the stress that I'm under. For example, that's why I was sick. It's the life living today is a real tough chore. And just going to the bank and traffic and the way people are with road rage and the rest of it, it's a creepy situation, and I don't see it getting better at this moment.
You're talking about road rage. I can't understand the number.
It's part of the ambiance of living at this moment in time. I, for example, would not want to be a child.
I have been cut off more times lately than I've ever been cut off. A car will see me coming, or a light truck will see me coming, and normally they would wait because there's not enough time between or distance between me and them. I'm approaching, and I'm on the main road, and they're trying to enter the road. They'll pull out and cut me off. I mean, it's unbelievable.
Anger. Everybody's a little more uptight, and so they push a little bit harder, a little more aggressive, and that's going to be the rule.
And I don't like it. Yep. And so here's some counts, class, very quickly. Los Angeles, 6,700 times normal. I'm sorry, 6,700 counts per minute. Boise, Idaho, 6,700. Concord, New Hampshire, 6,500. Salt Lake City, 5,500. Knoxville, Tennessee, 4,700. Eureka, California, 4,100. Washington, D.C., 2,800. They're at the bottom of the list. They got the least. You can go to this full list at docram.com. Rick, thanks so much for being with us.
My pleasure.